Hey everyone, this is Cristian Portilla. I'm here in the studio with Francisco Guerrero from Life Without Limits podcast. We are now live on YouTube and Facebook, and these are the videos that you can always check out if you like seeing us here in the studio, Facebook, YouTube. And then the audio episode will be out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Stitcher, but obviously Apple and Spotify come first. So go ahead and tune in. I'm actually gonna ask you to give me a 3, 2, 1.
Oh, nice, like always.
Like always, even so you gotta work. Let me know.
Alright, ready?
Yeah.
All you.
Peace world, welcome to Meet Them Mondays, a show about the wins and losses on the road to success. I'm your host, Cristian Portilla, and today I'm in the studio with Francisco Guerrero, the producer and creator of the Life Without Limits podcast.
Hey, what's up?
What up, Cisco?
Nothing much. How are you?
I'm good. It's been storming, so for anybody listening out there, when you catch the audio, you might hear some lightning, thunder, storms, the sky's falling outside of this window.
Just adds to the effect.
Exactly.
On this episode.
How was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. I went to Dallas to see my mom. That was good. So I didn't get to see her last weekend for Mother's Day. So I took my kids up there and came back. So
what did you guys do?
We just went out to eat. Just took her to eat with my sister and her boyfriend and my other nephew. So all her grandkids were there.
So you had some family time?
Yeah.
It was good?
Oh, yeah.
Family time is always replenishing.
It is.
So I kind of want to start with telling people how we met. You tell the story of how we met.
I always say we met at the gym because that's where we met.
Yeah.
Was the gym, but like we've said before, we really just met on a whim. Like we were just showing up to the same classes every day and working out together, being in the same group, and then through that, we started talking one day. I was really tired and you were really tired, and we both kind of said it at the same time, like, man, I'm really tired. And you were like, why? And I was telling you I hadn't slept much. And I was like, have you slept? And you were like, no. And you asked me why I hadn't slept. And I told you, oh, it's because I was working on a podcast. And you were like, what? You have a podcast? And I was like, yeah. And you were like, I have a podcast back in Miami. And you told me you're from Miami. We had like a 2-hour-long conversation. And I invited you over to come to my house to record our first episode, and you were down, and that's how Life Without Limits kind of got started.
Yeah. And so I actually want to talk about how Life Without Limits almost didn't start. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, for sure.
With the story of well, you know, about that loss that you guys took.
Oh yeah. So for those who don't know, we have an audio engineer, Mateo, who engineers all our stuff. And we had actually recorded a first episode a month prior to meeting Christian, and I thought it was fire. It was good, but it was like 2 or 3 hours long. And basically we recorded it one night. The next night we were going to go and edit it. And for whatever reason, the powers that be decided that me and Mateo couldn't link up at the same time to meet for dinner, because normally he would come to my house and then we would go to dinner together, but this time we were like, just meet me at the restaurant. All right, cool. Totally out of our ordinary realm. Just, normally we're always driving together. And so he meets me at the restaurant. We go inside, we eat, and when we walk out, his back window's busted out. And somebody stole his laptop with our first episode on there. So we call that the lost episode. So I'll say it again. If anybody out there has the lost episode, please provide that back. We would really appreciate it.
That was I remember when you told me that, and it's crazy because if people really understood the effort and the push that it really takes out of you to bring your creative goals to life or your dreams to life, maybe they wouldn't fuck with your shit as much, No. But the universe, I don't know if it's the universe or how you said the powers that be, be trying it, because the devil be knowing what you're trying to get right.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, that is definitely true. It takes a lot, to put your creative thoughts out there into the world. And those people definitely don't know the amount of what they actually got that night and what they really took from my cousin. My cousin really, like I said, I just had that one episode, but that was his 5 years of life work on that laptop, So he took a big L that day. and I could just see the anger in his eyes. But you're right. Like sometimes the enemy does try you, but I think sometimes I think it's the enemy. Sometimes I think it's God. I think like I'm a firm believer, like in my faith and everything like that. That I believe that when bad things happen, that there's a bigger reason behind it. So sometimes you just got to look at that reason and try to have a different perspective.
Yeah. And Life Without Limits, the podcast, you had actually been conceptualizing it and ideaing it for 5 years now.
Yes.
So can you, I guess, tell me what was it now in your present moment that finally gave you the push to bring it to life?
Yeah, so like you said, we have been planning for this for about 5 years. And honestly, all I could really say is that I think I had to go through more life before I could ever, drop the Life Without Limits podcast. If you've ever heard any of our podcasts, we appreciate you listening, first off. But our podcast is mainly focused at people struggling through daily life and how they combat those struggles and how they get through them. I lost my father at a really young age. My parents were divorced when I was young as well. Like, I've just been through a lot in life. So I've always had this different mindset and different perspective of life, of just how to deal it and handle things when bad things happen to me in life. So I think in those 5 years, like, I had to go through that. I don't think I would have been as focused, or that wouldn't have been, my main priority. I had a job working in logistics at the time. And then I ended up losing that job due to COVID last year. And that's kind of like where I was like, all right, well, if I can't go to work and do logistics, then I'm going to just start this podcast. Why not? Let's do it. It's time. I took that as a sign when I lost my job.
Can you tell me about the the Post-it note that you would look at?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, me and my cousins were all sitting at a table and we're talking about Life Without Limits podcast, about starting this podcast. And it all started because we were having a very, very intelligent conversation at the table just about life and different things and what we were going through in life and how we were kind of like going through them. My cousin was off at recording school, the audio engineer Mateo. One of my
Shout out to Mateo.
Shout out to the plug. That's the real plug.
Make it sound good.
Yeah. And so, so where was I?
You were saying how you guys were all with your cousins.
Yeah, so we were all sitting at the table just kind of having a conversation about life, and all of a sudden I go, man, what if we could like record this and release it to the world? I think there's people that could really benefit from, the way we view life.
Yeah, the conversation.
Exactly. And so they were like, yeah, that would be dope. And I said, we need to start a podcast. So the next day I'm sitting at my desk, like having a terrible day, just hating my life. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking down at a Post-it note and I have a pen in my hand and I just start drawing. And I draw this little logo, and at the top of it I write Life Without Limits. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to my cousin and I said, this is going to be the name of the podcast. Like, we're going to really do this shit one day. And he was like, dope, cool, like, let's do it. And so I stuck that Post-it note on my PC of my computer and I looked at that Post-it note every day for the last 5 years. So every day I looked at it, so I don't manifest it,
Yeah, I think life is definitely about manifesting. I sometimes like look back at my journal or things that I've written. Even now, most recently, I have like a board in my room, and I had written a couple of interviews that I wanted to do, or people that I'm interested in. And it's funny because, like how you said, the powers that be, like, some of those people have hit me up about wanting to come on the show.
No, for sure.
Or even the latest article that I wrote, I had it in my mind that I wanted to write that story on Black men run Houston.
Yeah.
And so just visualizing it really is like a life hack, like bringing it into the world,
For sure. I'm a kind of person too, like, that, like you said, the powers that be, to me, I say the powers that be, to me, I'm a very kind of like, I wouldn't say religious person, but a very spiritual person. But I tie my spirituality to God and, Jesus and all that. But even if you don't, like, let's call it the universe, for lack of a better term or whatever. The universe knows what's on your heart. They know what you want in life, and, it's just all in the right timing for it to happen.
I agree. So what is living a life without limits mean to you?
You see, I think the thing about life without limits is living a life without limits is it's up to you. It's really on yourself. For myself, I would say being at peace and being happy, and just, you know, when bad things happen to you, just being able to really look at them in a different light, in a different way, in a different perspective, and persevere through it. Like, you know, we're all on this earth, we're all going through it, we've all been through struggles, you know, so there's no reason for you to ever feel alone or feel like, you know, there's nobody else has ever gone through this, or, you know, there's somebody else that's gone. You won't be the first and you won't be the last. Like, this is what my mom and dad used to always tell me. So
my mom too, no vas a ser el primero ni la última.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, for me to live a limitless life is really dependent on the person, you know. I think, but once you unlock your mind and you start being able to look at situations differently and stop letting things affect you that happen in the physical world affect you spiritually, you'll really unlock a different potential in your life.
I would say that I'm the type of person that I have like a yes mentality when it comes to things. And I feel like when people don't have a yes mentality, it bothers me.
Yeah.
It irks me. Like people who see the roadblocks and the no's before they can see the yeses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, so people with a negative mindset, in a sense.
Yeah, or like I've also heard of ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was like a saying, but I believe it to be true because I usually always feel like anything can be done. And if it even can't be done at the moment, like I don't see why it should be an issue. Then okay, if we can't do it now, let's do it later. If we can't do it later, let's do it tomorrow. If we like, we can always
find a way.
We're always gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
And limits are not only like physical limits, but like the mental limits are the hardest.
Facts.
If you're, you know, have a goal in mind, or you know, you want to lose weight, or you want to buy a house, or you want to be in addiction, or whatever it is that you have going on in your life.
It all starts here.
It all starts here.
It does.
And also like the heart, the mind, the spirit, like those things need to align. Yes. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
So you talked about your family earlier. I kind of want to go back to how you grew up. You talked about losing your father. I want to know like your background. You're obviously Latino. So I kind of want people to know that side of you before you got to this point now.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm a third generation American. My Hispanic people will know what that means. But my dad was actually a Marine for 22 years. So growing up, we moved every 3 years. So I was born in Dallas. I moved to California, lived in California for a while, moved to Ohio because my dad moved to Japan, and then moved to North Carolina for like 3 or 4 years, and then moved to Houston. And then once we got to Houston, I want to say I was in second grade at the time. My parents actually ended up getting divorced about a couple years later, and we stayed here. My dad went off to Arizona. He ended up eventually retiring and coming back, and so I kind of stayed here in Houston. So I consider Houston my home.
But you're from Mexican descent.
Yes,
both
absolutely,
parents.
Yes. Both my parents are Mexican, but my dad grew up in Brownsville, which is a border town here in Texas, and my mom grew up in Ohio.
So you don't identify as Latino?
I do. I definitely do, because I definitely have the values. Like their parents were immigrants. Yeah, okay. So they immigrated here. So that kind of lifestyle, like I guess, like I was more Americanized. Like I said, my dad was in the military, so I always grew up on military bases. I was just always around, like, you know, military things. So I guess, like, I don't know, a lot of people associate America with the military, so...
Yeah, but the military is made up of people from, like, all over the world. If anything, it's, like, more multicultural, no?
No, for sure. But I was in the military also, and so the military does kind of change your mindset a little bit. Like I said, the Mexican culture was still there, the work ethic, you know, all that good stuff that comes with it. I don't know Spanish, so, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just different things like that.
Keep going.
Go ahead.
No, it says recording stopped. Recording has stopped because the storage is full. We're having like a little...
is it still on live?
Yeah, it's still live.
Okay, cool.
You stay over there. Let me take care of this.
Sorry. This is normally what I do whenever I am recording.
Yeah.
Christian's recording.
Yeah. He always like does the behind the scenes and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
You can't help it. I'm gonna block you like this.
What do you wait. I seen a pop up.
Go ahead. So the work ethic and everything else stayed with you from Mexican culture, but you told me about losing your dad. So how did that impact you growing up?
I would say that was probably like, well, I lost my dad when I was 21, 22. When I was 22 years old. So as far as growing up, it's like, where do you define being grown at? You know, because when I lost my father, I was like already out on my own. I was kind of doing my own thing already. I already had a child. So I would say that I was pretty much grown. But when you say growing up, that's why I kind of gave the story of like, you know, I grew up on military bases and like, you know, just around Marines my whole life. So.
And so losing your dad and being a dad, how did that impact you? Did you feel like you needed his guidance when it came to your time on fatherhood?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So me and my dad, being a Marine, growing up, like we didn't really always understand each other. He was always hard on us, like, you know, always, you know, just always tough on us. And so, how do you say it? So whenever I had a son was actually when we started basically becoming closer. Like we just basically started becoming closer and becoming, like growing a relationship, like you know when your son turns into a man, like if you, for those of you that have kids, like you might understand, and we started really getting there, and then like a year into it I ended up losing him. And so yeah, that played a big impact on me, just having to try to raise a son without really any guidance of like, how do I raise a son, and what am I, is even when it came to my relationships, like, you know, like, am I making the right choices, am I doing the right thing, like, you know, there was a lot of times where like I needed advice and, you know, that person isn't there to call on to ask, like, you know, hey, you know, like what should I do?
Yeah.
So
did you feel limited at the time because of what was happening to you, or did you still have like that limitless mind when all of these things were happening?
I definitely felt limited. There was a time period where I was very upset and very mad at the world. I was angry with God. I was angry with, you know, a lot of things in my life, and I think that outpoured into other areas of my life. But I tried my hardest to like remember how I was raised and to remember that like, you know, to keep going and just stay in the fight, and like eventually it'll be over. Like, you know, my family was just always really faith-based, so they just were really firm believers. Like, I mean, we've lost a bunch of our family members to cancer, you know, so like they kind of had to be, you know, in a sense. So yeah, so I mean, I would say like I struggled with it, but then at the same time, like I kept pushing through it though.
Yeah. I remember when we first met, we would talk about having like a victim mentality or a victor mentality.
Exactly.
And we've talked about that, and I definitely like acknowledging you the victor mentality of like overcoming the things that you overcome. And it's funny because I also feel like I'm the same way, where I recognize like the issues that I have or the struggles that I have, but I don't want to dwell in them too much, and I don't want to stay down there too much. Like I want to make sure that I you know, that like I get past them.
No, that's true. No, that's true. And even like, cause like when I lost my father, like I grieved. You know, you have to grieve. You have to feel those emotions. But what was really hard for me is that when my father passed away, like my dad always kind of told me when I was a kid that, you know, crying's something you do in the dark. Like you don't show your emotions to other people, even if life sucks. Like when you're alone in your room at night, that's when you feel those emotions. So it was always really hard for me to kind of express that emotion or feel that emotion. And at first, at 22, like I didn't really understand what that meant. So I would just keep everything bottled up inside, you know, and that's where a lot of that anger stemmed from and that upsetness, because I feel like I didn't really give myself that time to grieve. But through that, it kind of actually forced me to kind of have this mindset of like, you know, life goes on and time goes on. Because that's like another thing my dad would always say is like, you know, when I'm not here, like the world's going to keep spinning. So, you know, it's not going to stop because I leave the earth.
How did he die?
He died of brain cancer.
So he knew his time was coming?
He didn't really know his time was coming, honestly. He found out that he had brain cancer in January, forget the year, but in January, and by March, he had passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, so
quick.
he had brain surgery, got the tumors, then started chemotherapy. And what's crazy is like cancer isn't even really what killed him. He actually ended up getting sepsis while in the hospital.
I heard of that, but
it's
I
a
don't
blood
know what
infection.
It is. Okay.
So basically, it's a blood infection that spreads up to all your organs, and then your organs start to fail, and then you eventually pass away and die.
Damn.
So yeah, I don't think that he expected that he was gonna die. I think he really thought, like I said, we were huge faith-based families. So his faith told him like, you're gonna survive. Just keep fighting through this. Don't get down on yourself about it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, God has other plans.
Yeah.
So the universe has other plans for life.
And okay. Woo.
Woo.
Oh, woo. That was
That's a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's heavy, but it's real.
No, it is. No,
it's,
for sure.
It's the truth, and like, we're all gonna die.
No, it is.
One way or another.
I always wonder because, I've always wondered, like, what if I would have lost him earlier? What if I would have been younger? What would my mindset be about it? I don't know. I know I have friends out there who have lost their parents at younger ages, and I couldn't even imagine that, even losing my dad at 22, and then you see people who lose their parents when they're 50, and it's hard. It's hard. Losing a parent is one of the hardest, most traumatic things that you will ever go through in life. That is a psychological fact.
Yeah.
Like, you can look that up, and that is definitely one of the most traumatizing things.
Yeah, along with losing a child.
Yeah, or a child,
yeah.
Yes.
I remember growing up, I would tell my mom, and, now hearing it back, I'm like, my mom thought I was crazy, but I would tell her, like, I want to die first, and then I want you to go, because I can't imagine the pain of losing you, because I'm so attached to her, because she's a single parent. She's, an our only mom, so no dad in the picture ever. And I always had, like, this really crazy anxiety and fear of losing my mom. Like, what would I do? Especially when I was in her care. Like, how am I going to get through this? What am I going to do with my little sister? I remember being 8 years old, wondering what would I do if my mom didn't come home?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to take care of us,
No, for sure.
So, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about Life Without Limits.
Go for it.
Because just the same way that you have, like, these vulnerable conversations with me, you have them on your podcast as well.
Yes.
So what is Life Without Limits about, and who are some of the guests that we hear from? Most recently, you did an episode with a makeup artist who also doubles in her work with sex trafficking victims. So tell me about your guests.
So my guests are anybody and anyone. Like I said, like, I just want to hear people's life story, really, because we all have a story, whether you're wildly successful and rich, or you're not, or whatever you define successful as. Like, whether you're that or not, like, you still have a story. So that's, like, a misconception that a lot of people have, is they think that, oh, well, because I'm struggling and I'm doing this, that I'm unimportant. But that's not true. Like, you're going through life, and, like, it's a beautiful thing, like I said, it's beautiful. Life is amazing. Like, the things that we go through and the way that we persevere them, and, like, how much you can really take mentally. So, I like to see guests that, that have stories. Right now, like, we've really been focused on businesses and, like, people like that, because those are great stories to tell, because every business has a struggle, but I've also had people who, write screenplays, and, like, they tell me why they started writing screenplays, and, like, how that helps them cope through life. And you never know, that might help somebody else. Somebody else might be like, damn, maybe if I write, like, I'll feel better about my crappy day, or something like that. And, I've had music artists, I've had people who blew up off of one song, like, and their whole lives changed forever, so, like I said, I like to be versatile, like the makeup artist that we had, and the human trafficking girl that we had, Raquel. Like, she never even knew she was going to be a makeup artist. Like, she kind of just literally fell into it one day. She was working at Foot Locker, and then had a calling to go to a Mac counter, and her whole life changed forever. Yeah. Like, and now she's a professional makeup artist, and she advocates, and, like, through that platform of professional makeup, she now advocates for something that she truly cares about, which is human trafficking. So, to me, it's like, you're still on the path to your destiny, even when you're going through bad things in life. You just have to, like I said, look at it a little different. Think about how this bad moment is going to help you in the long run, or speak to your testimony in the future.
It's crazy because you said how growing up you were told not to be very emotional or
Yeah.
like not to let out those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But in our conversations and even, you know, when we have our one-on-ones and like how we have really become close in our friendship, I would disagree and I would say that if anything, you're super in touch with your emotional side. And
Yeah.
I think that you've expressed to me a lot of vulnerability and you bring that as well to your podcast.
No, for sure.
Like, how is it that you have kind of challenged that about yourself? Did you go to therapy for it? Did you like talk to someone? How have you gotten back in touch with that side and known it's okay?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that I'm really in tune with my emotions, because when you are told stuff like that, you spend a lot of time alone with your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you spend a lot of time thinking and trying to figure out, why am I feeling this way? Who's like, what's going on? Who's making me feel this way? Like, you know, is this even worth feeling this way? You know, but yeah, I have gone to therapy before. Like, I went to therapy, probably started about 3 or 4 years ago. And, man, I think it's awesome. You know, I used to make a post every single time I leave therapy and just say, like, just left my therapy session. It was great. Like, you know, if you need therapy, just like go. You know, just go. There's nothing like, if you were sick and had a cold, you would go to the doctor and get cured, right? Well, it's the same way with your mind. Like, you know what I'm saying? If your mind isn't healthy, you know, and you know that there's some bad shit going on up there that you can't figure out, go talk to an unbiased person and like let them kind of sort that out for you and give you a different perspective. You know, somebody that's not gonna just tell you like your mom or your sisters or your cousins, or just tell you like, oh yeah, like you're fine, you're right, they're wrong. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes like, no, like, you know, you're fucked up, yeah. So you need the help. You know?
I think that you know, people like you who find an issue and decide to work on it
Mm-hmm.
are very few far in between. People
Yes.
who have followed through, people who have word, and that's, I don't know if that's a quality that you can teach or it's a quality that you're born with, but it definitely takes, you know, a special someone to have that mindset to identify something. Same thing with the podcast. This is something I want to do, and it's gonna start, and I'm gonna start today. And so, in terms of the podcast, what's your vision for it? What do you want to happen with it?
I mean, when I say vision, like, I just want it to change lives. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just want to really, like, I've always had this calling in my heart, like, to just, I don't know, I don't want to say save the world. I don't think I'm a superhero or anything like that, but,
He's
like,
not?
But, like,
No, you're not. Are you sure?
Never, I was going to make a joke, but never mind.
Make it.
But, no, like, I've, you know, just to really change lives and speak life into people. You know, because, like, man, this world's broken. Like, it's so broken. There's so many broken people around here. And it's like, dude, you don't have to think that way. And, you know, a lot of people think, like, oh, like, you know, some people start podcasts for money. Some people start podcasts for monetization. They start it for fame. They start it for clout. You know, whatever. They're out making videos all the time, like, you know, trying to motivate people. That's great. I don't care if I change one person's life or 100,000 people's lives. Like, if I can change one world, that's a world. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Your world and my world, they're different. You know what I'm saying? It's not, we're not living in the same world. But, I mean, we are, but we're not. Yeah. If you really think about it. Yeah. Your experiences in your childhood are different than mine. And so if I can get you to think about life differently, even for a moment, that may alter your life forever and you may be happier because of it, then my job's complete. My vision's met.
Can you tell me about someone who has taught you to live your life without limits? Someone that you look up to?
And I would say it's a lot of people.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of people. It's not just one specific person that I could say. Like I said, my dad was a Marine, so I grew up around Marines, and people who know Marines, like, our mindset's different. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're the best. You know what I'm saying? I'll say that. We're the best. So,
no cap.
Like, no cap. Sorry, other services, but not really.
We thank you for your service anyway.
Thank you for your service. But, you know, when the ladies see the dudes in the blues, just go ahead and...
Of course.
And so, no, so, like, I grew up around Marines, and, like, their mindset's different, man. When shit gets tough and when shit gets hard, like, they just have this different way of looking at it. So growing up around my dad, I remember, you know, being a kid, you know, 12, 11 years old, and being with my dad drunk at a party or something like that. And, you know, when people get drunk, like, they get loving, they start talking or whatever. And, you know, they never talked about bullshit. You know what I'm saying? They talked about life, and they would lean on me as a kid, you know, hey, mijo, come here, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, we love you, and this is just keep going. Life sucks, but keep going. And, like, you know, they just always had this different mindset, a different outlook, and they were successful. Yeah. You know what I'm saying, in life. And so, like, I always kind of looked up to them and just their mindset. And like I said, I was raised by great men. You know what I'm saying? Whether my father was, even after my father passed away, there's still some great men in my life that are mentors to me that, you know, I look up to and I talk to. Like, my recruiter is one of them. Me and him have created, like, a brotherhood together. I mean, we don't talk very, like, all the time, but when we do, like, you know, we'll be on the phone for 2 hours, and he's just coaching me, like, you know, giving me free game. And there's a lot of people that don't do that anymore, so I really appreciate him, you know?
I feel like you're like that. Like, you pass it on.
Oh, yeah, for
like,
sure.
You hold the door open.
For sure. Man, let's all win. You know what I'm saying? Let's all win. Yeah. I feel like I'm a firm believer, like, in your circle, you're only strong as the weakest link.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if there's somebody in my circle that's weak because they don't have something, how can we help them win?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Let's win. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy because it took for me to come here to Houston. Mm-hmm. I had one person who supported me a lot in Miami with my podcast, who was like my partner in this. And, you know, when I came, I always got scared, and I always thought, like, well, like, who can I talk about this with now? Who am I going to be, you know, who's going to partner up with me in my podcast? Like, who's going to hold me accountable? Who's going to hold my hand? Like, I'm just thinking these things, you know? And the truth is that I feel like meeting you, I found a colleague. I found a friend. I found someone that I could talk about podcast worlds with. I could talk about life with. I could, you know, but I didn't have a colleague who understood, who hosted a podcast, who did all of these things with me back in my hometown. But changing and shifting and moving here, I found someone else who, like, gets that drive that I have for the podcast, or understands the vision, or, like, we teach each other things, you know, or we support each other, and that's so essential, like, to have in your tribe, you know?
No, of course. And, like, just to speak to that even a little more, like, I'm sure when you moved out here, you were probably afraid. You didn't know anybody out here. You didn't know what you were stepping into, and, you know, for whatever reason you moved out here, you chose to move out here. You chose to take that leap of faith, like, you know, just to say, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go. And, like, through that, like, look at all that started to happen, you know, and that's still going to happen. There's still so much more. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if you have that calling on your heart, take it, listen to it, just go. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Literally just go.
Yeah. And so, do you feel limited by anything in your life at the moment?
At the moment? No. I mean, no. I mean, like, I have kids and stuff, and when I first had my first son, I did think that, like, I went through this phase where I thought my life was over. I was like, I'm never going to amount to anything. Like, I'll be average Joe forever. You know, and I've always had this super ambitious mindset, even growing up. Like, you know, I've always saw myself being greater than, you know, just regular. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or what we would consider regular. And not saying that regular is bad. The world needs regular people. But I've just always felt like I've had a calling to be greater. Yeah. And so having a child, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie about Steve Jobs with Ashton Kutcher, when he finds out that his girlfriend's pregnant. He has, like, this freak out moment. He ends up, now in his case, he ends up leaving her and, like, starts Apple and grows into this wildly successful person. I chose not to do that because I would never abandon any of my kids. But like I said, like, I just kind of had that same kind of mindset where I was like, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be destined for all these great things. Like, how am I going to do that when I now have this other mouth to feed and this other responsibility? And at the time, I mean, I was making $800 every 2 weeks. That's $1,600 a month. Wow. You know, I was struggling. Life wasn't, you know, sunshine and rainbows.
Life wasn't without limits.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely limitations in finances and everything like that. But, you know, I just, like I said, pulled myself up by the bootstraps, I guess you can say, and just kept pushing through it and kept going. You know, and I still got those pay stubs. Literally, they're right behind me. You know, I have those pay stubs, and I'll go back and look at them when life gets hard. Right, even at moments right now where I feel weak, because there are moments in life I'm not always whole.
Yeah.
You know, I feel weak. Sometimes there's moments like I want to cry and life gets hard, you know, and I'm like, how am I going to make it to the next day? Or, you know what I'm saying? But I go back in my safe sometimes and I look at those pay stubs and I say, man, bro, if you could have made it through that, you make it what like where you look at where you're at now, like you know, why you tripping? You know, so
I mean, I think it's all relative, you know, because for somebody going through something that's like the end of their world and their whole entire existence gets consumed, and then for someone else, whatever other thing is presented is, you know, not that hard on them.
No,
it really is like a matter of being resilient, and sometimes it just feels like, God fucking damn, one thing comes down and everything else comes down with it.
Right. It's like when it rains, it pours.
You can't catch a break.
No. It's even like today. I mean, even like today, like just to give an example, like we were supposed to record this episode at 7.
Yeah.
And you just text me out of the nowhere. I'm on the other side of town. It's pouring rain here, guys. Like the streets are flooded. I just got a text message from a friend that said, streets are flooded, just stay home, blah, blah, blah. It floods a lot here in Houston. And, you know, you just texted me. I
had a text from a friend too, like, be careful of floods in Houston.
No, I'm exactly. But you texted me and you were like, hey, like, let's do it earlier. I'm not feeling good, blah, blah, blah. And you like I told you when you got here, you threw me a curveball.
Yeah.
You know, because I was already in the mindset, we're going to do this at 7. I have my whole day planned out, and you threw me a curveball. So I leave where I'm at. As soon as I get on the road, it is a tornado type weather out there. It's windy, 25 miles per hour. It's pouring rain. I can barely see driving. And honestly, I just laughed. I was like, and you know, I called my friend and I told him, I was like, man, like this is only fitting. You know what I'm saying? It's only fitting. Like, of course.
It wouldn't be my story.
It wouldn't be my story if it didn't storm today and it wasn't a mission to kind of try to get back home to get this done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I you know, with someone I used to know, when things in life would happen to me, I would look over at them and I would be like, yo, tell me that this isn't my life.
Right. That
this is not how, I was like, I can't make this stuff up.
For sure.
And they would look at me and they'd be like, honestly, if I didn't know you and know your story and know everything happening, I think that you're making this shit up, but you just can't make this up. And I'm like, yo, why would I? Like, this is like, let me just update you on the things that are happening today. And it's like curveball after curveball after curveball that like, and they'd be like, I don't know how like this happens like this, but like you're getting through it, like you're figuring it out.
And so it's like we said earlier, you can choose to either, you know, let that ruin my day. I could have been mad as hell and all messed up and like, man, what the heck, what am I gonna do, blah blah blah. And I got like that for a minute. I mean, you were here, you kind of witnessed it a little bit, but then I just kind of slowed down and I was like, just relax.
So 2 things I'm learning about you. One, when you're in your moment, I gotta just kind of let you have your moment. Yeah. Because if I get on top of you, like, yo, this, that, like, I just can tell you go inward. And I'm like, I need to shut the fuck up and let him have a second, you know? But 2, I also wanted you to know, like, yo, I'm not pressed. This isn't a big deal. Yeah. Like, we'll handle this whenever we need to handle this. We'll get to this later. Like, if stuff is coming up now, I threw a curveball. Like, you responded at it, cool. But if not, like, it's not that serious. And I apply that mentality, too, to life. Like, for sure, things happen, but in the grand scheme of things, this moment is not that serious. Yeah. It's serious. But, like, is it serious to get angry over? Is it serious to become, like, this whole thing over? Like, in a year from now, will it matter that we started at 4 or at 7? Nope. Or that the podcast got done and we had a great time? Exactly. You know what I mean? No, for sure. And I apply that to, like, a lot of things. Yeah. And then I determine if this is going to matter a year from now, this needs more attention. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, we're going to keep it moving. No, you know? For sure. And so I want to talk about what steps are you working on currently to continue to have a life without limits? What are you doing in your life right now to make sure that you stay sharp, that you stay focused, that your goals are falling into line? I know fitness is one of them. Yeah, no, for sure. Fitness is one of them. For people who don't know, like back in September of last year, I weighed 250 pounds, you know, and now I weigh about 218. Yeah. You know, and I'm still on my fitness journey. I started working out a lot mainly because
one of my friends at the time, he was on my show, Jonathan Canales. He owns his own personal training gig out in Porter, Texas. And he really kind of like sparked the fire back underneath me and reminded me, you know, like life is tough, like, but you're going to get through it. And he helped me apply that mindset to working out. And when I did that, I fell in love with it, you know, and I was like, damn. So if I don't go to the gym, I feel out of scheme. I don't feel right. Like, if I can miss a day, but when I start missing 2 or 3 days or even a week, like I've done recently, you know, it really gets with me mentally. So, you know, that's one thing. Another thing is I read. I try to educate myself as much as possible. You know, friends, you know, I have other friends around me with like mindsets that are the same way, you know, so talking to them and like really talking to other, because I feel like men don't talk enough, you know, about their emotions and their feelings. And it's not being a pussy. I've seen people all the time talk about, oh, don't be a bitch, deal with it. And like, yeah, that's great and all, but sometimes like, you know, fellas, we gotta talk to each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to like, let's bounce ideas off of each other, whether it's in the barber shop or it's in the studio, or, you know, we're all just in the car rolling downtown to go out for a night. Like, you know, like, what are you going through? Like, you know, like, you know, how are you dealing with that, you know, type stuff. And I think that can help a lot of people.
Yeah. I think that you're 100% right about that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of, and I'm seeing it now more, I think also because of the age that we are in, where we start to just really become like more human about things and just kind of like cut with the bullshit and just be honest. Like, yo, we have baggage, we have stuff going on, like, what's up, you know? Facts. And you get to a certain age where you no longer feel the need to like apologize for yourself and make excuses for certain things. Like, yo, I'm not feeling it today, like, that's it. And it's funny because earlier, I was telling some friends over the weekend about this mentality as well, but earlier I was walking Fiona. And I was thinking about going live, but I was looking a little rough and I was like, man, I don't feel comfortable, this and that. And I was gonna do a video and I started thinking in my head, like, how was I gonna do it? And then I remember thinking, like, going over it in my head and being like, oh, I'm sorry, like, you know, my hair isn't done and this and that. And then I thought to myself and I was like, wait, why would I apologize for that?
Right.
And that mentality is something that I'm getting more into now, where if I'm gonna apologize for my body, if I'm gonna apologize for my hair, if I'm gonna apologize for, you know, whatever it is, like, I want to make sure that it genuinely like it's genuine and I'm actually apologizing because I feel that I need to, or am I apologizing because I feel like I owe people something? You know what I mean?
No.
Like, I'm in the state of mind now where like I don't have to apologize for myself anymore.
No, you don't.
If you don't fuck with me, then you don't fuck with me. Yeah. Plain and simple. Like, that's it. Period.
And that's a good mindset to have, and it can be very dangerous too sometimes, depending on how you look at it. You know, you have to also be able to identify when you do have toxic traits and when you are the problem, and you know, but all that comes in when you're more in tune with your emotions and you're like, okay, yeah, I kind of maybe acted out of line, and then you apologize for stuff like that. But for just
when it's genuine,
when it's genuine, like you said. But when you are just who you are, like, you know, people are gonna somebody's gonna be mad no matter what. You can't make the whole world happy. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, regardless of what decision you make or what you choose to do or say, like, somebody's not gonna agree with it. So, for me, staying true to yourself is huge. Just stay true to yourself. That's one thing I pride myself in doing. And, you know, most of my friends or people who know me will tell you that, like, Francisco's real. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't want the truth, don't ask me. Yeah. Because I'm going to tell you. You might not like it. But you know what? Like, I won't sleep at night. Yeah. I'm telling you, I won't sleep at night. If, like, I will lay up in my bed till 2 a.m. thinking, like, why did I bullshit that person? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not here to sugarcoat shit for anyone. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, fuck that. Because life isn't sugar-coated. Life is hard. Yeah. It's not easy. Yeah. You know, it's tough. And it throws so much bullshit at you. And like we said, you can either choose to act like fuck or you can go forward. Yeah, you could be a victim. Yeah, or a victor. Yeah. And so I want to talk about something that you say in the intro to your podcast. You say that it's been a rewarding but challenging experience. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that when you say that? I mean, anybody that's done in the podcast world, even I mean, there's challenges behind it, finding guests, the mental space that you have to be in to even record somebody, and the energy it pulls out of you. Like, guys, this is what I know. Y'all who love Christian's episode, like, applaud her, because it's just not easy. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to put yourself out there like that, and just be vulnerable to people you don't know. I mean, people are listening to this. I don't know them. You don't know them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you're being as open as you possibly can with your life, because you're in an effort of trying to help somebody. So being like that, that's the challenging part, and then it pulls a lot of energy out of you after, after we're done, like, I'm ready for bed.
Yeah.
So, and then everything that comes after that, like, I edit my podcast. Mateo does the editing, but I sit there with him. I don't, like, for the most part, I try to, because, man, dude, that dude's a trooper.
Yeah.
But he'll be up to like from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. and I'll be passed out on the floor in this studio.
And you pay him.
3 a.m. Oh, yeah.
You pay your cousin.
No, I do. I definitely do, because, I mean, that's his craft.
Yeah.
That's his craft. And, like, if you have a craft, like,
and you know what I wanted to ask you as well? What do you think, if you could tell anyone who's out there listening to both of our podcasts as podcasters, what's the bare minimum that they could do for us? And I'll just say, for you as a podcaster, sharing an episode is one of them right away.
Yeah.
What else? What would you say? Like, what can the community do for you?
Sharing an episode. If you like what you hear, give us a follow on Instagram. Give us a follow, on your page or whatever, and, like, push that. Repost it. Takes nothing to repost to share an episode, or to share something on Facebook, or even shout us out on Instagram stories or whatever, and, like, we're gonna repost you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And, like, I know everybody likes that. Yeah. In the social media world.
Social media world.
I mean, yeah, social media is definitely crazy, but I mean, yeah, bare minimum, like, or even just listen. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't shout us out or whatever, just listen.
The thing for me is, sometimes everybody's super interested in coming on the podcast, but they have never heard not one episode. Yeah. They don't know what your podcast's about. They just want, like, I don't even know what they want. Yeah. And I'm like, what you trying to come over here? Do you even know, like, what I do? Yeah. And I think that one thing as a journalist that people don't understand is that whoever you trust to tell your story has a very delicate and a very delicate and sensitive job to do. No, for sure. It's not just about, let me find a journalist and have them publish something about me or come and record. Yeah. Like, I want to listen to some episodes. I want to read this person's work.
Yeah, I know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, but, like, social media world is crazy. No. Like, it moves super fast. But I've been lucky being here. No, that's true. Because Houston shows love. Oh, yeah, we do. All the people that have come on the show are still people that watch my stories now on my personal page, and I meet them Mondays. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the same thing with your guests. When I comment, they comment back or whatever the case is. Like, it's so, like, everyone wants to start a project, but no one has, like, the guts to have the follow. Not a lot of people, let me just say. Not a lot of people have the guts to follow through.
For sure. And I think that's because a lot of people are just scared, I think they're just scared. Like, they're afraid people are going to judge them. They're afraid people are going to, look at them differently or be like, oh, And I mean, there's haters out there. There's people, I'm sure, out there that listen to my stuff and they're like, oh, look at this guy starting a podcast, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure they're out there. And if you're out there, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it, because I'm thinking about you and you're motivating me. Yeah. Because you ain't going to stop me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You ain't going to limit my life.
You're not going to limit my life. You don't pay my bills. You don't put food in my mouth. Yeah. This is my house. This is, like, what I call, this is my kingdom. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And, like, I live here. I sleep with myself at night. I don't sleep with you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, like I said, if you're out there, cool. Yeah. Like, but when this shit pops off, don't come knocking. You know what I'm saying? Talking about you supported and blah, blah, blah.
You're staring at me dead in my eyes. Right? I'm like, we had these conversations.
Exactly.
Offline.
Exactly.
And so all jokes aside, though, for you, dead or alive, who would you want to interview if you could?
Joe Rogan.
Really?
Yeah.
The GOAT.
The GOAT.
I
The
was
man
listening
himself.
to his episode today with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
I was listening to it's 2 hours long though.
Yeah.
But yeah. So why would you want to interview Joe Rogan?
Well, that's alive.
Yeah.
I would want to interview Joe Rogan alive.
Yeah.
But
why him?
But
though?
why him? Just because he's the GOAT. Like he's the man. Like he's literally pioneered podcasting, and he was the first podcast I ever listened to, which is the same story for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, they heard Joe Rogan's podcast, they thought it was cool. Maybe they started a podcast, maybe they didn't. But a lot of people follow him and listen to him. I mean, hell, the dude signed a $75 million contract with Spotify.
Yeah.
And he probably didn't think that wasn't his intention.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. Like Joe Rogan started recording podcasts off his webcam in his in a room in his house off a laptop.
Yeah.
You know. And so, like, to see where he's gone now and just, I think we would be friends.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, if you're out there, we could be cool.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be friends with him too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like he kind of, like, falls into, like, that space that we do where we're, like, storytellers.
And he kind of, like, I look up to him because of, like I said, his versatility. Yeah. He's had so many different people on his show from all different backgrounds. I mean, he's had women, men, like, you know what I'm saying? Politicians, you know, conspiracy theorists. He's had it all. Yeah. Like, you know, so I look up to that versatility, and I just hope to emulate that one day, or even smash him and do it better. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, because you are the competition still, you know?
Well, I've told you, I was like, after 1 hour of Joe Rogan, I'm like, why am I still listening to this? Yeah. No disrespect, but, like, I have to still be engaged, you know? Of course. And podcasts are like that. Like, how can the person keep the conversation going? Mm-hmm. What am I getting out of this conversation? What's something new that I learned? You know,
for sure. And I find myself doing that too with a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts. And I guess I just say Joe Rogan mainly alive because before I released my first episode, I had a dream that I actually recorded with Joe Rogan. And I was like, you know, I just manifested it. I was like, it's going to happen. One day. One of these days it's going to happen. Why not? Yeah.
If I could interview someone which they're alive, it would be Hafiz from the Roommates podcast. They're actually here in Houston too.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm putting out that in the universe. Hafiz, come to meet them one day.
Come to meet them one day.
Yeah, I would love to have them. I listen to that podcast a lot. Mm-hmm. And Leah Tao, which she she no longer does it, but she did a podcast called Strangers that inspired Meet Them Mondays. Yeah. So I love her as like a journalist as well.
And what about Dad?
Dad? Probably my favorite salsero, Hector Lavoe. He has a story.
Really?
Yeah. I even want to get a Hector Lavoe tattoo. So I would interview him. Man, he went through life.
Right.
That guy. A Rolling Stone. What about you, Dad?
Probably my dad.
Yeah?
Yeah. Probably. Just because I need to know.
Oh man, Cisco. So I guess we reached the end, but if anyone out there wants to listen to Life Without Limits, how could they stay in touch with you? And maybe what are some guests that you have in the works, people that you want to come on the show, or maybe anyone who's out there that you'd like to interview?
Yeah. Like I said, you can follow us at Life WO Limits 1 on Instagram. Yeah. I post on my personal page, Francisco Guerrero, if you want to look me up on Facebook. I post on there about the podcast. It's more for that and posting memes. But the Instagram page is definitely the best place to follow us at and stay up to date with us.
Yeah. And potential guests. Yeah.
Potential guests. Anyone. Literally. If you're willing to be on the show, like, let's run it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But know what you're getting yourself into. Because, you know, I'm a tap in.
Yeah.
You know, so if you... I have a guest coming on Wednesday. He just got super interested in COVID while COVID was going on, and he's done a ton of research. So we're going to talk about that on Wednesday and just kind of see where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
You know, and like I told him, he actually called before you showed up, and he was like, well, what do you think we're going to talk about? What do you think? And I said, just listen to an episode and, like, just know what you're going to get yourself into, and, like, we'll just go from there.
Yeah.
You know? And so... like I said, if you feel like you have a story and you want to come on here and share it, and, you know, shit, I've had my life changed by some of my guests.
Yeah.
You know, they've told me things, and I'll tell them when it happens. Like, damn, you just made me think about that in a whole different light.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Get it out.
Yeah. Well, Thank you so much for being
Well, thank you for having me
on Meet the Mondays.
I didn't have to travel far, so.
I appreciate you, and
Yeah.
I appreciate our friendship.
I really do, and I just want to say, like, I'm really proud of you. You know, everything that you're doing here in Houston, to come here for, like, not knowing anyone and finding a way to make life happen, like, this shit's fucking motivating. And I want you to know that, like, you definitely motivate us a lot.
Thank you.
Over here at the Life Without Limits house. So
Thank you.
everyone, give her a 5-star review because she deserves it.
Aw, I appreciate you. I'm just trying to live my life without limits, bro.
Hey, do what you do.
Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. That's all for today. Follow us on social media at Meet the Mondays. I'm your host, Cristian Portilla. On IG, I call her Cristian. And if you like what you hear, then go ahead and share an episode with your friends or support the Meet the Mondays mission. Hit us up for sponsorships and ads. And please subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Peace.